What's up, everybody? This is the Dirty Napkin, and these are going to be shorter segments, not full-blown interview podcasts. These are just topics that are the nitty-gritty of entrepreneurship, of business, of leadership, the things that you've got your hands dirty eating that pizza, and you need to just wipe them off, and that napkin's dirty. So this is the Dirty Napkin. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Napkin Game Plan. I'm Ryan Thogmartin, your host. My co-host, we haven't figured out the original, official title for you yet, but Eli Robert Gable. Mm-hmm. You can search him on every music platform known to man and find his music. So, Eli, look, you were on the first episode of Napkin Game Plan with me, and we're gonna kind of break up the interview content with what we're calling the Dirty Napkin, and this is one of those.
Such a good name too.
It's a great name. Like, this is a Dirty Napkin conversation, and the Dirty Napkin is like the nitty-gritty of entrepreneurship, the nitty-gritty of owning a business, and just like you're doing the work. You just ate the pizza and you wiped your greasy hands on the napkin, and it shows that something's been happening. So we're gonna hit on some of the topics that are, like that I battle with, that other entrepreneurs and CEOs and business leaders battle with, and just this is more of the opinionated content that's going to happen outside of our feature content with the interviews and success stories and trials and tribulations with other entrepreneurs. So you have an interesting topic, and it's kind of poised great because we're kind of coming into a season of this right now.
Right. Yeah. So what we're going to be talking about today is why you can't fear change. And just to set you up a little bit, the reason that I got thinking about this topic was a while ago we had some organizational changes within our company. And then our HR person called you and said, hey, Eli's flipping out a little bit. Yeah. And then I remember on that phone call you called and you're like, Eli, it's stupid to fear change. You can't control it. So I just wanted you to dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think change and the fear of change holds back. It limits us, and it's a chronic issue for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners, even businesses that are established. Like, let's look at Blockbuster. Blockbuster doesn't exist because they couldn't adapt to the change that Netflix was bringing to the profession or the industry, and the change that the consumer was demanding with the rise of Netflix. So, like, change and that fear cripples a business, and it's one of the hardest things to overcome. Like, as a business owner, an entrepreneur, like, we get in patterns. So, like, me as a just a true blood entrepreneur, the business, I created it. We carved out our own segment of the market in a specific profession, and it's when that happens and you're the one that's created the process and the patterns and how things work, you get comfortable, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
We get in patterns that are repetitive, that are, path of least resistance, and when things change, it disrupts that pattern. And I was very adverse to change. I mean, one of the hardest things for me to change was hiring the first employee. Mm-hmm. Like, going from taking something that's your baby and now giving control, a sliver of it, to somebody else, that change feared me, and we could have scaled faster and grew quicker in the first 3 years had I brought somebody on immediately versus waiting and trying to control everything. So,
for sure,
like, fear of change is crippling. And, for us, when we have organizational changes, when we have changes in process, that can cripple people. But what we have to realize, and like, the advice that I gave to you was no different than the advice that you would give to any business owner, CEO, somebody in a leadership position. Like, it's the same advice. Like, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. If you're going to have a successful brand, business, product, change is an absolute must, because when we create companies and products, we're creating those out of the need to fix something.
Right.
And so the full fundamental of the business is developed around something changing, because to fix something, you've got to change what you're doing, because what you're currently doing is broken. So change drives so much of business. And, when you and I had our conversation, the advice I gave you was like, Eli, here's the deal. Like, you can only control what is in your power to control. If we change a process, if we add somebody to the team, if we remove somebody from the team, if we give you another responsibility or take a responsibility away, those are things that are outside of your control. And if you try to control those things, you go absolutely bonkers and mad and crazy. And it can be, use the word again, crippling. It can be paralyzing. So when we can look at forces that we can control, like I can control who we hire, I can control, who we do business with, I can control, when we go to market with something. What I can't control are economic changes in our society. I can't control the amount of money a business has.
Right.
I can't control regulations. I can't control outside circumstances that have nothing to do with me but impact our business. I can't control those things. I also can't control how fast the consumer moves. And I think that is a key with a lot of brands, is the product is driven by the actions of the consumer and what the consumer wants. And if you look again with the Blockbuster analogy, like there were 3 reasons Blockbuster thought that they were safe. And those 3 reasons were, a consumer survey that they had done with their current customers. They said, these 3 things that are most important to our customers, Netflix can't provide these things, so we're safe. And that was, the consumer liked the ability to see the front and the back of the DVD case. They liked the probability that they would run into somebody or a neighbor at the video store that they could have a conversation with. And then they loved the fact that they could get popcorn on the way out the door and didn't have to make another stop.
Right.
Netflix didn't provide either of those 3 things in any capacity. What they failed to realize is that the consumer was changing faster than they were processing it. And the consumer rather lay in bed naked and with 3 clicks have whatever video they want to watch, where they don't have to leave the house or get dressed.
For sure.
So when we are resistant to change and when we are resistant to where the consumer is going, that is the perfect recipe for disaster. If we can't evolve to the demands of the consumer, if we don't have a pulse on what the consumer, how they're engaging with our niche in the business or our niche in society, the product that we offer, if we aren't understanding where they're going and how they're operating, we've got to be reactive to that. And in some ways we've got to be predictive to that. And change is involved in both of those processes. Like, change is at the core of all of it.
Sweet. And just one more point to touch on, something that you've said also whenever you speak out, is like, we make it a goal to predict the change that could ruin our business, and we try to do that.
That's right. Like, what keeps me awake at night is, what is somebody going to create that eliminates the need for our business and our company? If someone's going to create that, we need to be the ones that create it. So if we're continually looking at what would put us out of business and we're the ones creating that, we're protecting ourselves in that regard, but we're also having to evolve and to change.
Right.
And if we were afraid of the change, we wouldn't be able to see the bigger picture of, this could influx and hurt our business and put us out of business. And if I'm not willing to go, I hate change, we're not pivoting, that's a piece of content that we're working on right now about, pivoting. Sometimes things don't work and you got to pivot. And the pivot is how you stay in business. Without the pivot, you go out of business. And the pivot doesn't happen if you're scared of change.
Right.
If you're scared to evolve. And I say fear and scare like it's a negative thing. It's natural. Like, we always fear the unknown and things that could happen and what we can't control. Like, that's not a comfortable place to be in. But at the end of the day, that change is the livelihood of what it is that we're doing and the livelihood of everybody else that's under that umbrella of the brand. And the change has to happen, or things don't work as well as they did, and we get very romantic about what we are comfortable with. And when we get romantic about the things that we're comfortable with, it's almost like a love story. Like we've fallen in love with it. We don't want to cheat on that thing because, man, that's the way that we've always done it. I'm comfortable. I understand it.
Right.
If we pivot, we feel guilty. We're cheating on that thing that we love. But by doing that, we're actually making it stronger because that change allows us to operate more efficiently. That change allows us to bring in more revenue. That change allows us to impact communities more because we can hire. Like there's a lot of positive things that happen, change that we look at so negative. And, you know, one of the things that you and I talk about in the business a lot and content that we're creating has to do with gratitude. It has to do with, you know, mindset. And when you can have a growth mindset and you're looking at, you know, continually getting better. And there's the Bible parable where, you know, the man gives 2 talents, 4 talents, 5 talents, and comes back, and the 2-talent guy buried it because he didn't want to lose it and he had fear. And the other 2, you know, the guy with 4 talents doubled it. Like that is, you know, we're given a growth mindset of how do we get to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 30. Like how do we continue to multiply that? And change is evolving all throughout that process.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Sweet. So what's like just one, like in one sentence, what do you want our listeners to go away with?
Change is inevitable, and you can only control what you can control that's in your power. You've got to embrace change because that's the livelihood. If you don't, you're crippled.
Sweet.
Cool. All right. That is this episode of the Napkin Game Plan. Look, wherever you're digesting this at, whether you're listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, engage with us in the comments. Ask me a question. Give me some feedback. I will engage with every single person that asks a question. We monitor that, and we want to build that relationship. We want to change the way that you listen to podcasts. Like if I'm striking a nerve, if you don't agree, man, I even want to hear from the haters more than I want to hear from the people that agree. But like, let's make change happen. It's never easy, but when we can pivot and when we can change, we can accomplish amazing things. If we stay in the same track, we just create a rut and we get stuck. So until next time, keep disrupting.